Welcome back to another edition of Research Fantasy presents our PGA DFS picks for the Quicken Loans National starting Thursday, June 29th, 2017. And unlike last week, the field is definitely a lot weaker. We were really spoiled to see a Travelers Championship that had some strong names in the pool. And the results, honestly, I've cooled down from when I wrote this article yesterday, but the results for the top 10 that we had were actually very, very, very solid. Except for Justin Thomas, who just could not figure out for his life, on a course that he's really built to dominate, just couldn't figure out how to get it done. He was our top projected play. He missed the cut. Spieth came in at number 2. We all know what happened there. We got a win. Mark Leishman finished tied 17. Daniel Berger finished a solo 2. Paul Casey tied for 5th. Tony Finau tied for 17th. Embarrassingly, I don't know. Brian Harmon, I believe, tied 35th. Rory McIlroy tied for 17th. Graham DeLate tied for 26th. Kyle Stanley tied for 57th. So, Justin Thomas, if he makes the cut and he plays reasonably well, we've got ourselves a veritable cha-ching weekend where we get 10 of 10 of our top players through the cut line and onto the weekend where we could really score some points. Unfortunately, it didn't happen that way. I was able to be profitable on the weekend, but like an asshole, I played Justin Thomas over Spieth in my cash games because I'm not risk adverse. I'm fine with it even in my cash games because I run that lineup in a lot of single entry tournaments as well. That's been my strategy for years in every single sport, and I've been profitable overall, so I'm certainly not going to change it. And just one of those weeks where all the guys around him raked. Guys like Snedeker, who didn't make this list, played very well. And I'm not mad. Like I said, if you end up higher than you started, you're doing something right. You just always wish you could have been completely and totally right. So anyway, this week is going to be interesting. Tournament heads to TPC Potomac for the first time. Never held the tournament here. There were 2 web.com tournaments held here, and I believe 2012, 2013. Since then, the course has gone through considerable revisions. It sits as a 71 24-yard par 70 course. Doubt it's going to be very high scoring. Probably -6, -7, maybe -5 type thing. Always makes it challenging to figure out where you want to go with your key stats. Like everyone else, I base my decisions off of a model that shows how well somebody did at this course with several key stats. I've really basically have no weighting on the course history because with it jumping around and this being a new course that legitimately no one's played on, I don't really want to rely on the fact that, so-and-so did really well here at this tournament. I get that guys get into rhythm at certain times of the year, and I think we can address some of that, but for the most part, I'm looking at general stuff, looking at, strokes gained tee to green, strokes gained approach, proximity. Scrambling is probably my favorite stat this week, and good drive percentage as well. So I'm going to drop 4 golfers, and luckily they kind of really fall all over the map in terms of pricing, so that's a plus. Let's start off with Rickie Fowler, 19-1 fantasy draft, 10-2 FanDuel, 10-2, 12,000 Draftkings. I will admit that this scares the hell out of me, and I don't remember what tournament it was because I'm not a big golf aficionado. I'm a guy that plays the statistics. I'm going to be very upfront with that altogether. But this reminds me of the tournament right before we went to the U.S. Open a couple of weeks ago where Fowler was the lead dog on the field and he just played horrible. So, there's definitely a little bit of a worry there for me, but I think it's always a worry when you're going into a major as opposed to being removed a few weeks from a major. So He's probably a guy that I end up putting in my cash games just because he could very well go out there and ding this tournament. And again, I think he's going to carry pretty high ownership because it's not exactly difficult to make a solid lineup around him. The pricing, like I said, you can get several guys really affordable to round out your lineup. So I don't hate using him. Turns out fairly well. There's nothing that really is a cause for alarm in our statistics, but nothing really pops either. This is just one of those game theory situations where I think that if you want to buy in with a high ownership, thinking that he's going to go all the way and you don't want to be without him, it makes sense. This is a natural point to pivot, especially considering he will carry high ownership, and the move off of him onto it doesn't have to be someone at the same price range. It could be just being able to spend up on 3 different golfers really allows you to create a much different set of golfers for your tournament lineups. Next up, Kyle Stanley, 15-3 fantasy draft, 7K FanDuel, 7,600 on Draftkings. Even in a weak field, I thought this price for Stanley was a little bit absurd. But again, this is a situation where you could see a lot of high ownership behind him because players know that Kyle Stanley has been doing well. He's making cuts. In our key stats, he's top 4 in 3 of them, including strokes gained approach, proximity to the hole, and good drive percentage. His worst stat is scrambling, which is 61st, which isn't that bad. A lot of minds in the business brighter than mine have been thinking that Kyle Stanley is going to come through with something sooner rather than later. So in a weak field at a price like this, I find it just too hard to pass up. Moving on from there, let's go with Brandon Steele. He's just been an absolute cut maker, and I have no issues using him at all. His key stat is 7th in par 4 scoring, and he comes no lower than 43rd in good drive percentage. So more or less what we have with Steele is a guy who's excelling in all 6 of the stats that we're really focusing on this week. He's another threat to contend on Sunday, and he's been making it to the weekend, which is sometimes the most important thing. We've seen guys like Justin Thomas post adequate results on Thursday and Friday, and then just come through with a banger on Saturday to really open things up for scoring. I could see Steele being in a strong position this week. Let's wrap up with Lucas Glover, 13-1 fantasy draft, 6,200 FanDuel, 6,900 on Draftkings. That price way down there. I don't think he's going to be incredibly popular. I just don't think for the most part people really trust him that much, and rightfully so. But he's 10th in good drive percentage, and his worst stat is 88th in scrambling. So it's another guy that's really built well for this course. I mean, top, and most of his stats were kind of middling between 10th and 88th. So I think he's got an excellent upside. He's not someone who I'm going to be sitting here and thinking, man, at 6,900, I really think he can take this tournament. But he is someone that I'm absolutely thinking, hey, he could be a top 20 guy. And at 6,900 on DraftKings, 6,200 on FanDuel, that really, really opens things up for you to be able to get all of the golfers you want. That'll wrap it up for today. 4 of our favorite golfers: Rickie Fowler, Kyle Stanley, Brandon Steele, Lucas Glover. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel below. Head over to researchfantasy.com, see what we've got going on there. Like us on Facebook at Research and Win. Follow us on Twitter at Research and Win, and join us again tomorrow.